Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Morty and Glory video. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Militarm Tempestus Scions and explaining why I think the Glory Boys have never been looking better. So with the new Guard Codex right round the corner, we've been able to see previews of the new good book and it is looking very nice, and Scions have got to glow up like many other units in the Guard Codex. However, what's been really interesting to me is seeing people discussing the Scions online and saying that they don't think they're actually very good anymore, which is really surprising, because as I'm going to go through in this video, I honestly think that Scions have had a huge improvement overall, and there's a lot of things for pure Scion players and Guard players who like to feature some Scions in their list to get excited about. So without further ado, let's dive straight into this video and go through some of the reasons why I think the Scions are looking good, and then address some of the concerns that people are having about the new Militarm Tempestus Scions. So one of the main complaints people have got about the new Scions is the fact that they've lost their old regimental doctrines from Psychic Awakening, and they don't seem to have access to any new regimental doctrines as well. And whilst technically correct, I'm here to tell you that in reality, Scions are not only getting access to their old regimental doctrines, when you actually put it all together on the table, they're getting to use all of the old regimental doctrines, or near as damn it, at the same time. When we actually look at the practical effect of all these buffs that you can stack on them throughout the battle, you're suddenly going to realize that you're not picking between Lambton Lions and Capic Eagles anymore. You're using both, and then some, at the same time. So the first thing that I want to take a look at is, while Scions in the new codex don't have access to regimental doctrines like heirloom weapons or swift as the wind, they actually basically have a set regimental doctrine, which is their Stormtroopers ability on their datasheet. Now, Stormtroopers is actually very similar to the old Stormtrooper ability that they had in the 8th edition codex. When the 8th edition codex first dropped, the Scion regimental doctrine was Stormtroopers, and how it used to work was, if you were in half range, when you shot at an enemy, if you got a 6 to hit, you got a chance to roll another hit. It wasn't exploding sixes as we know them to be now. It was, you get that 6 to hit, and you get to pick up another dice, and you get to try and roll with that. But if you like a roll 1 or a 2, it misses. So that's how it used to be, and now it's proper exploding 6s to hit. It's with any weapon at any range. Now, to be clear, as far as I can tell reading this, but let me know what you think down in the comment section below, it also applies to when they're in combat. So they get exploding 6s at any range with shooting, and they get exploding 6s in combat as well. So overall, it's much better. It used to just be in shooting, now it's shooting and combat. It used to be within half range, now it's all ranges. It used to be crappy getting extra shots, now it's full-blown exploding 6s. So overall, the Stormtrooper ability has had a massive glow up. So that covers the OG Stormtrooper ability that Scions used to have. But what about those other doctrines? You know, what about fan favorites like Lambton Lions? How are they still around? Well, basically, guys, they now take place in the form of the Take Aim order, which is going to be your go-to order. Now, if you don't know this, the new Guard Take Aim order is absolutely fantastic. It gives you +1 to hit and +1 AP. So that extra AP basically means that you're running around with Lambton Lions, and you're going to be putting Take Aim on pretty much everyone, unless you're fixed bayoneting for a bit of fun, or you are, you know, moving, you're going to be using Take Aim pretty much every single turn. It's just that good. And like I said, basically that means you've not only got the Stormtrooper Regiment trait going on, but you've also got the extra AP of the Lambton Lions going on. But what about another fan favourite, the Capic Eagles? I mean, everyone loved running around with those volley guns with no issues to moving and shooting, and also being able to get +1 to hit. That was really good. Well, guess what? You've still got it, because now all volley guns are rapid fire, which is brilliant. By that one small tweak, GW has made volley guns infinitely better. I now am seriously considering, in any Scion army, my go-to squad is going to be plasma volley gun in a little 5-man squad, and maybe even big 10-man squads. I'm looking at double plasma, double volley gun. Okay, like volley guns being rapid fire now just makes them so much more usable. By being rapid fire, it means you can move and shoot with them, and you don't suffer a -1 to hit penalty. That was one of the main parts of the Capic Eagle trait. The other part, of course, was when you disembarked from a vehicle, you got +1 to hit for that turn. Well, you're getting that again if you look at that Take Aim order again. You can move your Tauruxes up, you can get your guys out the following turn, and then when you get your officer out of a Taurux, he is allowed to do an order the turn he disembarks from a transport, even if he missed it in the command phase. So guess what? Couple of Taurux primes driving up, got a 10-man squad in one, got a 5-man squad and a command squad in the other one. They disembark, you do the take aim order, suddenly you've got a group of Scions who are using the old Stormtrooper ability but better, the same AP as Land and Lions, and the same hitting with all those volley guns as Capic Eagles. So now you're actually rocking 3 regiment traits at the same time. You know, realistically, that's the practical result of what you're doing now on the battlefield with these Scions. But there are also some other regimental doctrines that the Scions used to get that people really like, such as the Jotun Dragons, who used to get an extra 6-inch range on all their rapid-fire weapons. Well, first thing to mention is that all your hotshot lasguns are now at 24-inch range. So you've got half of that trait just baked into your main datasheet now. Your rifles are just firing at a longer range. It's amazing. The advantage of that is not only can you fire them from deep strike and rapid fire range, finally, but it also means that you can take those longer range pot shots, which starts opening whole other avenues of maybe even like foot slogging or mostly motorized Scions. I mean, that's something that just hasn't been an option in the past. And now some people will say, oh, what about the plasma, Mordian? What about the 30-inch range plasma? That was always very nice. I will, hold my hands up there and say that was always very nice. That was always very nice. And we don't have 30-inch range plasma back now. We have to accept that. But there is a way that you could kind of recreate those old long school shots with those plasma guns. And that's by using some of the new Scion Warlord traits. So I'm skipping ahead a little bit here in my list. But one of the new Scion Warlord traits allows you to get maximum shots with rapid fire weapons at any range with all infantry units within 6 inches of the Warlord, which means you've actually got better than the old school Jotun Dragons, because you're not getting one shot at 30-inch range. You're not getting or 2 shots in 15-inch range. That's what people really like, the 2 shots in 15-inch range. Now you're actually getting just 2 shots at 24-inch range, which means you're getting better double tap at a longer range. So again, you looking at all these things individually, you start realizing, hang on, yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's essentially the same as the old Jotun Dragons. So now I'm Jotun Dragons, Capic Eagles, Land and Lions, and Stormtroopers all baked into one. That's crazy. Now, I know there were also a couple of other regiment traits that sometimes people like to take. You had the 9th Jotun Gorgons and the 32nd Thetoid Eagles. Both of those regiments had various variations of the get a 6 to hit, get some kind of extra shot or exploding 6. Basically, guys, how I see it is that GW have taken the old 9th Jotun Gorgons. They've taken the old 32nd Thetoid Eagles, and they've taken the old Stormtrooper ability, and they just mashed them all together and said, look, we're just going to give you one good one that's always going off exploding 6s. Easy peasy, any range, just go for it, any target, you're having a great time. So I would argue that those 3 regiment traits have essentially been combined into one better one, much more flexible and always on. But the gravy train just keeps on rolling. Because thanks to the way Valkyries have been updated, Scions can really start making use of having a couple of Valks in every list. I don't think you're going to see a Scions list that doesn't run at least 2 Valkyries. They're just really good. They got a bit cheaper overall. Their multiple rocket pods are now stronger with more AP. And also, they hit on 3s all the time. No need to go into hover mode to get roaming gunship. You're always hitting on 3s. You're finally having your Valkyries essentially piloted by Scion equivalents. They're really good. On top of that, the old precision drop stratagem has basically been baked into the Valkyries profile. If you're not a Scion and you're trying to disembark from a Valkyrie after it's moved, then you have to roll a dice for each model. And on a roll of a 1, that model dies. It's like getting out of a dying vehicle. On top of that, you have to stay 9 inches away from any enemy units. Scions, they don't have that problem. They're used to fast roping out of Black Hawks. So they can get out of the Valkyrie after it's moved, no problem. No rolling 1s for them. And secondly, they can get out 6 inches away, which really allows them to get up close and personal, but also, more importantly, allows them to squeeze into tighter holes that other units wouldn't be able to do so. So it is a really, really strong ability. Now, I know some people say, oh, but you can't quite get into melt range. That is true. But that's why I mentioned that other bit where I said you can get into those tight spaces. That is something that you cannot overestimate. Think about that from a secondary point of view. How many of you used to like using the 9th Iotan Dragoons Daring Descent stratagem to allow you to deep strike near enemy units and get that rod off, get that retrieve data off? Well, now everyone can do that. All Scions can do that. So it is a really, really powerful ability, and I don't think it's one that should be underestimated at all. Another thing to mention about new Scions is they got cheaper overall. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, Mordian Glory, what are you smoking? I'm looking at the points cost for Scions right now. They're 11 points a model. Yeah, they are, mate. But they come with free war gear now. So it used to be, if you wanted to buy a 5-man squad with 2 special weapons, that would cost you 65 points. Now it costs you 55. You want to buy a big 10-man brick, that used to cost you 130 points. Now it costs you 110. Now, one little thing to mention is you do have to pay for the plasma pistol now. So on a 5-man squad, you're actually realistically looking at spending 60 points rather than 65. Still a discount. And in a bigger squad, you're actually looking at saving 15 points rather than 20. But I do like how that makes it actually a decision to make a 5-man squad or a 10-man squad, because if you take 2 5-man squads, you're already saving 10 points. If you take a 10-man squad, you're saving 15 points. Might only seem like a small difference, but it is something you are saving. And the fact that you're saving points on a unit which has demonstrably got better with all of these stacking abilities you can put on them is pretty nuts. But speaking about loadouts and points, that does bring me to another complaint that people have about the new Scions, which is their special weapons loadouts have been messed with. So no longer can you just take 4 plasma guns on a squad or 4 melter guns. Now you have to take, in a 10-man squad, 2 of each special weapon. You're limited. So you could take 2 plasma guns and 2 melter guns. You could take 2 melter guns and 2 flamers. You could take 2 plasma guns and 2 volley guns. But you couldn't take 3 plasma guns and a volley gun. You couldn't take all 4 plasma guns. Now, I understand that being very frustrating, and I know that for years GW has been encouraging us to buy lots of kits and mix things together, and they've purposely held back bits to force us to buy more kits to get the loadouts that we wanted. I know that. And now they're saying, no, just build it how it comes in the box. It is a very confusing mixed message. But one thing I would say is this. While Scions have got a little less efficient, because they can't now take 4 plasma guns. They have to take 2 plasma, 2 melt, or 2 plasma, 2 volley guns. They have got a little bit cheaper in points. Now, I haven't done the maths on this. Anyone who is a bigger brain than I, please let me know down in the comment section how this actually works out. But my gut instinct is that by saving between 15 and 20 points on every squad, you're kind of making up for that lost efficiency of not being able to get 4 of the same special weapon in one unit. That's kind of how I see it, and that's why I think, despite the fact that these guys have got much better, GW has thrown the Scion community a bone and gone, okay, we'll give you a little bit of a discount because you're not quite taking the efficient loadouts that you once could take. Now, moving on to the next point, I think that Scions have got access to 3 of the best warlord traits in the whole new book, and they're really, really good. You're going to have to struggle to pick between which ones you're going to take. Now, overall, the guard warlord traits, the generic ones, are a bit whatever. The only 2 that really stand out are, you've got the warlord trait that allows an officer to do a kind of order he doesn't know. So, for example, if you've got a platoon commander, he could do regimental orders and prefector's orders, or regimental orders and mechanized orders. So that one's pretty good, and that one's actually also pretty good for Scions as well, but we'll touch on that in a moment. But also, they've got access to the one where, oh, if you need to redeploy something, you can do. But you kind of have to build into that one as well. The Scion ones themselves are actually, in my opinion, much more just directly powerful. They just boost the power of your guys, which is mad because they're already really powerful. So the first one is the one that I mentioned before, which is where if you're within 6 inches of the Warlord Militarm Tempestus, infantry can just fire their rapid fire weapons with maximum shots at any range. That is really, really strong. I know I touched on that before regarding regimental doctrines, but the kind of tactical flexibility that opens up with Scions is pretty big. Traditionally, Scions have had to get up close and personal to do their damage, and that has always meant that they have been a glass hammer army. They've come in, they smash the entire area, but if it doesn't quite go off, the enemy can often turn around and pick up the small exposed Scion squads. I mean, one of the problems with deep strike is you often rarely get to deep strike into cover. You end up often having to try and get an angle on someone. That's not so much a problem anymore. You could have quite a foot slogging element to your Scion army, maybe a few units in some Tauroxes, and they could drive up and they could take a flank objective, they could take a midfield objective, and they'd still be able to pour long range firepower pretty much anywhere they needed to on the board. That's very nice, and it does open up a whole different aspect to how you can run your Scions and adds another tool into the toolbox. It means you can have long range volley gun plasma squads, and you can have up close and personal flamer melter or melter plasma squads. It lets you do two things and doesn't make your firepower feel so one-hit wonder. The second warlord trait they've got means that any Minotaur Tempest infantry within 6 inches of the warlord with this warlord trait get to ignore enemy cover. That's both dense and light. Now you can imagine stacking this warlord trait and the last one, which you can totally do thanks to the fact that Guard now have access to 2 warlord traits, just like everyone else. And you can imagine having a unit, a little fire base, maybe 30 Scions with a couple of command squads, and they are laying down accurate firepower. They're all hitting on 2s, baby, thanks to Take Aim. They've all got extra AP on their guns, thanks to Take Aim. They're all ignoring enemy cover as well, both light and dense, and they're double tapping at max range. It just seems very, very powerful and a very good way and very simple way of building quite an effective little Scion fire base. And you're going to be taking at least 2 Scion command squads, so it's a no-brainer to stack these 2 together and start making them work. Now, those first 2 are kind of for those wrinkly-brained 4D chess kind of players who want to start having more tools in the toolbox and opening up some more long-range tactics. But if you're a bit of a traditional Scion player like me, you've got a bit of a smooth brain going on, and the only thing that you want is more firepower, you know, the Cult of Clarkson of Scion players, then you're going to want to look at this third warlord trait. It's pretty simple. If you're within 6 inches of the warlord and you're within half range of the enemy, you get an extra AP. That is just brilliant. AP, you know, it stacks with Take Aim, guys. It stacks with Take Aim. AP -4 las guns, anyone? AP -5 plasma guns? How about a melter gun that has the same AP value as a volcano lance? Yeah, it's pretty good. All right, it's pretty powerful. And again, you could take 2 command squads and you could stack this with the ignoring cover warlord trait as well, and suddenly you've got AP -5 weapons that are ignoring cover. Finally, a plasma gun that can kill an armor contempt intercessor in 1 shot in cover. He doesn't get a save. Finally, it's just really powerful, and overall it just adds a big damage boost onto your army. And the great thing is, you get to sort of build your army around these warlord traits. Are you going to have more deep strikers, that traditional smash the entire area, kill anything with more than 2 legs, kind of Scion army, suicide drops all the way, baby, 1 big punch, knock the enemy out, turn 2? You go for that third warlord trait. Are you going to be playing the long game, maybe a bit more tactical, a bit more flexible, maybe some more infiltration style Scions? You start looking at those first 2. So they've just got access to some brilliant warlord traits, and they're just really, really good. But that's not even it. We've got even more. Can you believe this guy? He's saying Scions have got even more buffs. Well, they do. Now, those first ones were obviously the biggies, but we've got a lot of other littlies that stack up, and they're really good. So the first one is the command rod gives you access to commissar orders now. That is actually a bonus. Some people are going to say to me, I preferred it when it gave you 2 orders. You don't need 2 orders anymore. Orders splash. As someone who has run pure Scions a lot throughout all of 9th edition, when we got the order splashing thing in the balanced data slate, I stopped needing to take like the auto relic of Tiberius or the master of command warlord trait. I only needed 3 orders. Everything was splashing everywhere that I needed it to go. So the fact that the command rod now gives you access to perfected orders is really, really good. It means that you don't have to spend points on commissars, which means you can spend more points on those cheap Scion squads. It's really good. And commissar orders are fantastic. And the best bit is, the Tempesta Prime gets to use a Voxcaster to issue his orders, which means that he is the only person in the game that can do commissar orders 24 inches out. It's really, really strong. On top of that, a Tempesta Prime is the only model outside of the Lord Solar who can know all 3 types of order. Because you could have a Tempesta Prime with a command rod and then give him the superior tactical training warlord trait so he can do another set of orders that he wouldn't normally know. Oh look, there's only one set left, it's mechanized orders. Who needs a fancy AOS model on a horse leading your army when you can have a Tempesta Prime who's been on a 3-hour online course? All I'm saying, guys, all I'm saying is Scions have got so much flexibility baked in. Now, I'm not sure if you can do those mechanized orders to your Taurox Primes. Genuinely, I don't know. If someone does, let me know down in the comment section. But that's kind of a buff for maybe a not pure Scion army. Maybe you're looking at taking a nice mixed army with Scions and with regular guard. Well, guess what? Now you can have a Scion command squad running around helping support your tanks. It's actually really good. Speaking of Scion command squads, they now benefit from Lookout Sir, just like regular guard command squads. And that is so good. You can have a plasma gun, a melter gun, and a volley gun, all just untargetable. And you've still got one guy left over. Realistically, you're probably going to go down the route of plasma gun and volley gun, and then you're going to have a Master Vox, and you're going to want that regimental standard because you're going to want those reroll ones to wound. But the point is you're going to have multiple untargetable special weapons throughout your army. If you stack a plasma pistol on each Tempesta Prime, you're looking at 3 plasma shots and potentially 4 hotshot volley gun shots a turn, which the enemy just can't interact with. You're just going to be shooting them. So it is very, very nice being able to just hide those special weapons, and Scions being able to hide them is very good. And speaking of very good, Scions get access to all of the regular guard relics as well. So do you want to take the broken bullshit Banner of Doom, stick it on a command squad, on a Scion command squad even. You want to take the Barbican's Key, stick it on a squad of guys. You want to take the Clarion Proclamatus, you can do it. If anything, the Clarion Proclamatus is much, much more useful in a Scion army than it is in a regular guard army, because you're going to have people potentially deep striking down, and you're still going to want to be able to order them in subsequent turns, aren't you? So overall, they get access to all of their good guard relics, and they even get access to some pretty good Scion-only relics, with the big standout one being Refractor Field Generator's still here, baby. Oh, yep, that's right. The Land and Line relic, the auto take one, is in the new codex. Now, bear in mind, it doesn't affect Taurox Primes anymore, but it still affects your infantry. And having a 5-up invulnerable save on these big bricks of Scions is still very, very nice. Think about this. You could have bricks of Scions in cover with the take cover order, which means they now get light cover and dense cover and a 5+ invuln. What's not to like? So there's a couple of small buffs that I'm not seeing many people talk about, which I actually think are pretty important to Scions, which is the fact they've got extra attack and leadership. Now that leadership buff is actually surprisingly impactful, because it means that you're now leadership 8, which distinguishes you from regular line guardsmen who are still in leadership 7. And it means that in order for you to start running away, you need to take 3 casualties. Now on a 5-man squad, if you've taken 3 casualties, you're almost combat ineffective anyway at that point. You're going to be down to like the sergeant and maybe, you know, 1 special weapon guy. But it means that if you only take a couple of casualties, let's say someone just chucks a few bolt shots your way, you only take 2 casualties, you're good. You're still operating at full damage output potential. So I think it's really nice for means that your opponent can't just throw some spare firepower and start trying to make Scion squads bucket. Now that extra attack is actually really nice because it gives you an extra tool in your toolbox and it allows you to actually bully other light infantry armies. Think of things like Tau Fire Warriors, Eldar Guardians, all the different kinds of Eldar infantry really, Skitari, the various small Tyrannid organisms. All of those guys are actually fairly equal to Guardsmen in terms of stats and combat capability. But with Scions, suddenly, you've got a distinct edge if you use the fixed bayonets order. A Scion squad with a sergeant with a chainsword is going to put out 22 attacks hitting on 3s, AP -1. That will easily allow you to overwhelm an equivalent number of enemy Tau Fire Warriors, like I said, or various Eldar infantry. And that's very important, because it means that you can engage when you're having those matchups in all of the different phases of the game. Means you can do a little bit of combat. Means you can do lots of shooting. Means you can have a smidge of psychic by adding astropaths onto your command squads. It allows Scions to essentially be able to, in some capacity, operate in every phase of the game. Now, one thing that Scions might have a little bit of difficulty with is reroll ones to hit auras, but they do actually have a couple of options here. In a pure Scion army, you can just plug in that new Lord Solar model. He goes in his own little Supreme Command detachment. You don't worry about him, and your other detachments stay as pure Scions, and if they're a pure Scion detachment, then they become troops, which is great. And he's just going to give you a big reroll ones to hit, reroll ones to wound aura buffer all the way around him, and that's just going to mean that all of those plasmas are going to be having a great time. And in a mixed guard Scions army, of course, you can benefit from the Caden Castellan because he gives his reroll ones to hit aura. It's either to core or platoon. It doesn't matter. Scions have got both of those keywords. They're having a great time. So either way, you're going to have easy access to some form of reroll ones to hit aura, and thanks to regimental standards, reroll ones to wound auras as well. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that if you take a pure detachment of Scions, then they all become troops. That is really good, obviously, if you want to run a pure Scions army, but it's actually an advantage Scions being elites in a hybrid guard army, in a regular guard and Scions force, because it means that you no longer have to sacrifice viable troop slots in order to get some deep striking Scions into your army. Unlike in the old codex where the elite section was very, very hotly contested, I have found in the new codex, I'm not taking all that many elites. Maybe I'll try out some like Ogrins or plug a Commissar in there, but really I'm not taking all that many, which means that there's plenty of room for you to pop some Scions in there. Now, the reason that's big is it means that you can take all the line infantry that you need, those 6 Cadian shock squads, if not more. But on the other hand, it means that if you want to do secondaries like retrieve data, it's easy. Pop a couple of 5-man Scion squads in your elite slots. Have a great time. Go for it. Don't even worry about it, bro. So Scions being in the elite slot for regular guard is actually a buff. And them being in the troop slot in a pure Scion army means that they're still absolutely feasible to run a full Scion force. Now, hopefully you guys have been listening to this video and been going, actually, it sounds like they're in a pretty nice position. But I always do try and present a balanced view. And there is one problem with Scions that I 100% agree with the online community and think it is a big issue. They struggle with orders when doing deep strike. Now, the reason for that is orders are now in the command phase. But deep striking units come down in the movement phase, which means that if you've got a Scion command squad and it deep strikes down, it's not going to be able to do orders the turn it comes in. Likewise, even if you have command squads starting on the battlefield, when your deep strikers come in, they've still missed the opportunity to get an order relayed by Vox. Even if you put a squad in a transport and then disembark them, it still doesn't work because you've got to disembark at the beginning of the movement phase essentially, and your reinforcement come in at the end of the reinforcements, at the end of the movement phase in the reinforcement step. So basically, if your Scions are in deep strike right now, there isn't a way to get them to receive orders. Now, I have a couple of thoughts on that. Firstly, I wouldn't be surprised if that gets FAQ'd. I mean, GW obviously thought about it when it came to officers getting out of transports. Why wouldn't they think about it when it comes to deep striking units down? So I think there is a chance that we might see an FAQ. At the very least, we might have to play with it for a few months and then some sort of balanced data slate comes out and they address it in there. But I suspect it might get changed. I'm not expecting it to. GW may have done it for very good reasons, and maybe they wanted to tone Scions back a little bit. You get the flexibility deep striking in, but you don't get all your buffs. Okay, I can kind of see that logic. But I would hope that they would change it because it does feel a bit clunky and it doesn't really feel fair on the Scions. I mean, why wouldn't they receive their orders before they drop? Why wouldn't the officer drop in and then give orders? It doesn't really make sense. So hopefully they'll fix it. However, let's assume they don't fix it. Let's assume it is as intended. GW decided that they would try to, balance Scions a little bit that way. I think it means you just play into it. I think it means that realistically you end up running a lot more of a motorized and sort of air cav based Scions army. I think rather than having lots of deep strikers coming in, you use a couple of Valkyries to get those deep strikers where you need them to be. You can use the new baked in precision drop in with the Valkyries to get your deep strikers where they need to be. So I think there's that. And because you can always get out of the Valkyrie and then issue the orders, right? Or it just means you only see like small Scion squads deep striking in with weapons that don't really rely upon orders. Maybe you'll see things like flamers, although not likely, they're not great. I think realistically what it means is you're going to see a lot of Scion armies almost fully motorized. A lot of people running around in those Torx Primes, having a good time. Maybe, like I said, maybe a couple of those Valks stacked up. So that's how I see a lot of Scion players running their armies now. And hopefully, if the order thing does change, we'll see a little bit of a return to Deep Strike. But those are my thoughts on the new Scions. What do you think? Did I get anything wrong? Is there anything you disagree with? Anything I missed? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video, then please consider giving it a like. And if you want to make sure you never miss an episode, smash that subscribe button. If you really want to go the extra mile when it comes to supporting the channel, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It is thanks to the generous support of the channel members and the patrons I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time now and put a lot more effort and research and attention into my videos. One of the big perks of becoming a channel member is the fact that you gain access to the Mordian Glory Discord. You also gain access to it if you are a patron as well. That's a really active community. We've got over 600 people who are active in that Discord server. There's always someone to chat to about painting, hobbying, memes, tactics, army lists, and just general chatting. It's great. So if you're a Scion player, you want to meet other Scion players or other Guard players in general, then seriously consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter and getting yourself into that Discord server. And I just want to take a moment now to say a big thank you to all of the latest channel members and patrons. So a huge thank you to Grey Shirt Guy, Fuego Bacon, Nicholas, World War II Destroyer, Harvey Hume, Jobo, Matthew Nope, John Buck, Dreas Est, Andrew Marlowe, Ishmael Menora, Maverick, Mostro Morty, Randy Lannert, Chet Chrisholm, Hulron, Ascended Raven, Michael R., Graham Mitchell, hey, maybe that's the Black Library writer, Chase Skinner, 40k Guy, Scott Cairns, Net Rossi, Ian Cat, Coinflip, Cool German Dude, Robert Rogers, It's a Me Marco, Lacanthos, Daniel Ninova, Josh MC 2000, Bread, Gimpy Buffalo, Fran Porsche, and Burger Dan. Thank you guys for becoming channel members. Thank you for doing your part. And I want to do a shout out for the latest Patreon supports as well. Big thank you to Zhang Jerry, BC Crowther, Tyler McKee, Imperial Jake, Ryan Kelly, Freddie DB, DubX298, Harrison Garland, Viper, and Nathan Colozo. Thank you guys for becoming patrons. Your ongoing support makes a huge, huge difference. And speaking of making a huge difference, I want to say a personal, heartfelt thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people that have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to supporting the channel. So a massive thank you. And an 07 down in that comment section for Bonbon Vert, Navy Veteran, Phil French, Ross Miller, Tequal, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and of course, Sly Varney, the one-man super chatting army. Massive thank you to all of you guys. Your very generous support is hugely life-changing. It really is a big part of being able to do this full-time, so thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.